let's chat gluten. It's gotten a really bad rap of late, and it's actually for very good reason. The protein that is in gluten is actually really hard for our bodies to digest. And, it's not so much that gluten in itself is really bad for you. It's just that, number one, we eat way too much of it. And number two, it's what we have done to plants since the industrial era, and particularly wheat, that has made it contain more gluten. And so it's more irritating to our gut lining. In general, as humans, our bodies are actually not designed to process a lot of grains. And, so that includes wheat, rye, barley, kumut, quinoa, rice. All those are grains that our digestive system can kind of only do so much with. They're what we call calorie dense foods. So, you'll hear me start to talk about, foods in the form of nutrient dense or calorie dense. And so grains fall into that category where they are calorie dense. It means that, yes, they may have some nutrients. Oftentimes, our bodies can't even utilize the nutrients that are in them. Plants grow in an amazing way to protect themselves and to ward off, pesticides and invaders and, bugs and all that sort of thing. And so oftentimes it means that, we can't even utilize the nutrients that are present in it anyway. And, we have a lot to be grateful for grains. When we learnt how to mass produce them and store them, it fixed starvation in a lot of eras where there was such a shortage of food. So, that in itself is a great feat. And what I would like to put to you now, though, is that we still suffer from starvation. We're actually starving our bodies of nutrients because we are eating way too many grains. So I'd like you to consider for a moment, what your average day looks like in what you eat. How many grains do you eat? How many serves of grains do you eat? And the good old food pyramid, I think, needs to be tipped up on its head, because, it recommends, I think it's 5 to 6 serves of grains a day, and you can, since that became the norm, and since we started to mass produce food and process food, and you find grains in absolutely everything, look at what it has done to our weight. We have a huge obesity problem in the Western world. And I think that grains have a lot to answer for that, because they are very calorie dense, but not very nutrient dense. And so what that means is, I want to explain to you how that has a reaction, like how your brain reacts to that. So gluten in itself has a very profound effect on the brain, and particularly if you are sensitive to it. For me personally, I felt almost drunk, and I was very young when I first started to react to gluten, and I wouldn't have been able to describe that to anybody, because obviously I didn't even know what that feeling felt like of being drunk then. But now, and as I got older, I could really link the same sort of feeling when I ate foods that contain gluten to that same feeling that you get when you're drunk. And it just kind of dulls everything. Your reactions are slower. I had that real foggy brain where I couldn't think clearly, and I used to get really intense headaches, stomach aches, and all those other symptoms. But on that brain kind of effect, it was quite profound, and I only really noticed that when I actually fully went off of it and all that went away. So it's quite an amazing thing, and it has different effects for different people. And we see so many neurological conditions now that can be related to poor gut health as the result of poor diet and the amount of grains that are affecting our brain health. And then the other thing that it does is, because it is low in nutrients, you're eating something and your brain is looking for nutrients, your body is looking for nutrients. And when it doesn't get it, it says, keep eating. That's why when you go out, and they serve the bun on the side of the plate, in a restaurant, you can eat the bread, you eat a bowl of pasta, and you still feel like you want to eat, even though you're really full. You can still keep eating, or your brain is still telling you to keep eating. Whereas if you go and you have, a beautiful stir fry filled with vegetables that you've got to really, crunch on and chew, and you get all the nutrients out of that, your body feels full and you don't get that signal anymore to keep eating. So, there's a few things with grains that I think that, really, that being calorie dense and your body having to signal you to keep eating because you're not getting the nutrients that you need, I think is one thing that really contributes to obesity. And, the fact that we just eat way too much. So I'd like to challenge you to really look at your plate and, analyze how many grains you're eating and work out whether or not you can reduce that and replace them with something else. It can be a really big transition. It's a really important part of healing. You've heard me talk about healing as that first step in really starting to improve your health. You need to be able to heal your gut, and by healing your gut, you help to heal lots of other areas of your life. And one really important part of that is to really reduce those grains and for a period of time completely eliminate them. And the other thing with grains is that they are, they're essentially sugars within our body. Oftentimes we don't eat them as whole grains. They're ground down into flour to make, pasta or bread or biscuits or cakes or whatever it might be. And so they essentially just become sugar within our body. And sugar is quite addictive. And I'm going to leave this video here today. And in the next video, we're going to talk about sugar. So in the meantime, take a look at the amount of grains that you eat and start to think about how you can maybe replace some of those. Add some more vegetables into your diet instead of so many grains.